Hi everybody, Joy Durning, Bright Customer Success Coach. Thank you for joining me. I am really happy to be here with all of you. We are going to review statuses and options for working with your sellers during the shutdown. You know, as we are all still trying to adjust to the present reality, I know many of you have questions and your sellers do too. For example, what status should my listing be? Or maybe you're wondering, can I even take a new listing? To answer that, in short, absolutely. You know, we are all dealing with the shutdown, and while we are practicing social distancing, this does not mean that you can't continue to work with your sellers and buyers and continue to serve your clients virtually. It is important to understand that this is a rapidly changing situation, and the restrictions will vary from state to state. So check in often, check in with your broker, and check in with your association. Make sure that you've got the correct and also the latest information for your state, so you know what you are able to do. I know we all want to do the right things. And right now, most importantly, stay safe and stay well. So, what status should my listing be? Ultimately, that is up to your sellers. Now, as their agent, they will turn to you to advise them. And listen, we are all dealing with the same thing. It's unprecedented times. Nobody really knows what the market's going to be in 3 months, 6 months, a year. What we do know is most recently, in many neighborhoods, home prices have been up and mortgage rates continue to be low. So from that perspective, you might consider it still a great time, or a good time at least, to buy or sell. Also consider that, you know, we're all spending more time at home. I know I'm spending a lot more time online. I'm sure you are too. And some may be using this time to do some research and plan ahead. They might be planning a change. This could include making a move or buying a new home. So keep this in mind as you reach out to your sellers. You do want to reach out, consult with them. Start by, listening and understanding their concerns. There may be some confusion for them as well as to what you're able to do. And they might be thinking about, the best way to handle it, concerned about people coming and going during this time, if sellings are even an option in your state. You want to listen to the concerns, try to answer those concerns and questions, certainly identify, do they still want to sell? And explain the options. So we're going to talk about statuses and the options that your sellers have. I do want to note that Bright has been aggressively responding. We are, meeting daily to assess the situation. And already several adjustments have been made to the Bright policy in response to COVID-19 and the shutdown. So I'm going to share some information with all of you here today. But you will want to check back each day, make sure you have the latest information and are aware of any updates. We have created a resource page, brightmls.com/COVID-19. Again, brightmls.com/COVID-19. Go here to get your updates. There's also a lot of information that we're sharing to help all of you, including a client-facing document that you can print or email to share, as well as a video to help you explain options to your sellers. We're all working really hard, and I know you are too. At Bright, we are hyper-focused on doing what we can so that you can do what you need to continue to serve your clients. I mentioned temporary adjustments to the Bright policy. Most notably, the listings in active status are not required to be available to show. This means if your state is not allowing showings, or even if they are, and your seller would prefer not to, your listing can still remain active and bright. The active status, as always, requires you have an active listing agreement. You must include photos, at least one, and your sellers must be accepting offers. Now, it's not required, but if you're not able to do an in-person showing, you may want to consider including a virtual tour at least. A virtual showing is an option, and you could also try a virtual open house. If you do not have access to the property, work with your sellers. Get creative. Leverage the technology. There's tons of it. Lots of great options. While in active status, days on market will accrue, as the property is still in the market and still syndicates to sites like Zillow, Realtor.com, and our consumer site, BrightMLSHomes.com. Now, some of your sellers may want to hit the pause button. In this scenario, change the status to temp off. Properties in temp off cannot be shown as they are not active. When you are ready to show, even if only virtually, or your seller is ready to accept offers again, you must update the status to active. Days on market is paused while in temp off, and I get this question a lot, but there is no limit on the number of days that your listing may remain in temp off status. In fact, you could go from active to temp off, back to active, back to temp off, but your listing may remain in temp off status until your listing agreement is scheduled to expire. Temp off listings do not syndicate to sites like Zillow and Realtor.com. And there are no restrictions on continuing to market your listing while in temp off status. Bright is currently making adjustments to include temp off listings in your Bright IDX feed. So it won't go out to Zillow or Realtor.com, but they may appear on your agent or broker site if your IDX vendor is able to incorporate them. Stay tuned for more. Now, what if your seller wants their property to come off the market altogether? Your options: canceled or withdrawn. A lot of agents confuse the two. To be clear, canceled means you and your broker have decided to release the seller from the listing agreement. This also means the homeowner could potentially relist their property with another agent, or even do a for sale by owner. Withdrawn, however, means you still have a listing agreement in force. You are no longer marketing the property, and there is no intent to go back to active. Now, if the seller changes their mind and it has been more than 60 days, keywords, more than 60 days, you might then decide to copy the canceled or withdrawn listing to create a new active listing. This will reset both the days on market and the cumulative days on market to 1. If it has been 60 days or less, again, 60 days or less, then only the days on market will reset. But CDOM would continue to accrue. And that's just a refresher for all of you. Some food for thought. I know we all put a lot of emphasis on days on market. It is one way that you compete and market yourself. Right now, however, we are all in the same boat. Days on market for this period in time, at least, should not really impact your ability to compete in the same way. And also, buyers are going to take their cue from you. Days on market during this time will be an important stat for all of us to have retrospectively. And as a final note, days on market is a calculation. Bright does not syndicate this information. Many sites, however, do use their own proprietary formula to both calculate and show days on market. So what about new listings? Again, absolutely. There's always someone who wants or needs to sell, and there will always be those who want or need to move. Of course, you will want to check with your state, but Bright does not currently restrict you from taking new listings. As a reminder, the Bright rule remains that you have 3 business days from the effective date of the listing, or 1 business day from when you start publicly marketing to input your listing into Bright, whichever comes first. While we have relaxed the rules temporarily for active listings, you may still want to leverage the coming soon status, only available for new listings. And of course, as always, you must have a listing agreement for it to be eligible for entry into Bright. Coming soon, you can absolutely market your listing, but you cannot show. When the seller is ready to show, you must go active. Days on market do not accrue. And finally, your listing may remain in coming soon status for up to 21 days. With an extended time available for new construction or major renovations, even where there is no certificate of occupancy or similar. In other words, it cannot be occupied. Now, those can stay in coming soon for an extended period of time until there is a certificate of occupancy or the property is ready to show. Coming soon is a good way to generate some interest while your sellers prepare to show. But also, let's say you input your listing today. List price, coming soon, $525. While still in coming soon, you change the list price to $550 or $5. That price change will not appear in the history when you go active. So coming soon is not only an opportunity to pre-market your listing, but also test the market. Note, coming soon listings do not syndicate. So you are sharing your listing, your coming soon listings with other agents and brokers in Bright and their clients only. Now, whatever your seller decides, you do want to update the status. And editing your status for your listing is easy. Go to My Listings, Add and Edit Listings, locate your listing, and click Edit. You'll see status is one of the first fields that display, so you don't have to go far. Click on the drop down, and there are all of the statuses complete with descriptions. So using the example of the seller who's just not sure what they want to do, they don't want to cancel the agreement, but they kind of want to hit the pause button for right now and revisit in a couple weeks. Choose temp off and make sure that you publish that change. Now, if your seller chooses to remain active, then you may also want to consider adding tours. You can find an option there on the left menu, Photos and Tours, to add your virtual tour. This is where you would add an unbranded virtual tour. Just give it a name, paste the link. Showing information, click here. You can scroll through. There will typically be an option for you to click the tab and manage your showing time information. Of course, for me, this is a draft, but assuming this was a published listing that I was editing, then I could click there and it would take me into showing time to my listing. And I would see a number of different options. You know, do I want to allow agents to request appointments online? Yes or no? What is the appointment type? Maybe I want to update the feedback form. And if I decide to, maybe in those areas where in-person showings are not an option, to offer a virtual showing, Then scroll down to access information, and you'll see an option there for other and a field for access notes. And this is where you can post the link to your virtual showing. And the other agent will receive that when you confirm. So I know I ran through that pretty quickly. I am just planting the seed to make sure that you're aware. I also want you to know that Bright has a YouTube channel, a lot of great videos here. Our team has responded rapidly this past week or so to create some videos for you specific to what's going on right now. So definitely check that out. Go to YouTube, search for Bright MLS, and check out the latest playlist. A lot of great information and hopefully some good inspiration for all of you as we all find new ways to work. Remember, we are all in this together, so don't get stuck. Let's get busy. Definitely stay tuned to the state mandates and updates. Reach out to your sellers, consult with your sellers, and stay in touch with them. Get creative and leverage the technology. Update your statuses and showing information, and let us know how we can help. Thank you to all of you for being here today. We appreciate you. Please stay safe and stay well.
Thanks so much, Joy. At this point, let's turn to Mike Delgadio, Head of Customer Support Training and Accuracy and Policy, for answers to your questions. And just a heads up, there were a lot of questions. So thank you to everyone who participated. We're committed to getting those all answered. Again, if your question was submitted after we gathered these, we'll reach out to you individually. Thanks for being here, Mike.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks so much.
Okay, so first question comes from Etta, and Etta asks, what are you doing about realtors who are violating the no showings directive from the state?
Well, it's really the responsibilities of all the individuals to follow their state and local jurisdictions' policies, whatever policies your state and local jurisdictions has put out. Violations of those state policies on social distancing and stay at home, that's really enforced by local law enforcement. It's not really Bright's place to enforce those particular policies. What we've done on our part, Bright has taken a number of steps, a number of actions to allow subscribers to be able to conduct all their real estate business in a safe manner so that they don't actually need to conduct the showings in person. We've tried to make as many adjustments as we can to allow you to work remotely, to stay distanced from your customers if you need to.
Beth S. asks, how are you going to police if a listing agent is denying showings to outside agents, but showing their own listings?
Well, as always, if you find a violation, that's best reported to our accuracy and policy team. We won't necessarily know about it unless it gets reported to us. So you can always report that to our accuracy and policy team. You can log on to Bright, click support, submit a question to policy questions, for example, and we'll get notified.
Sherry or Cherry, I'm not sure what the pronunciation is there, but she asks, I've seen a number of homes prior to the new COVID-19 policies go temp off market shortly after the first few days as active, and then they're pended.
So I'm not sure exactly what the question is there. It sounds like, prior to COVID-19, if there were questions about the off MLS policy, I feel like we've had a lot of questions about off MLS policy that's addressed in our off MLS webinars. This one I want to really kind of keep focused on COVID-19. As always, especially during this time, subscribers can change that status to temp off at any time if the property is not available for showing. If you're not actively showing it, you can have it in temp off.
Marta H. asks, will this limit the availability of listings to our buyer clients?
We hope not. So the number of active listings, it's always right. It's altered by current market conditions. What we're trying to do is by expanding the use of temp off, we're trying to ensure that all Bright subscribers have access really to the greatest number of listings to assist their buyers, especially during this time where things are a little bit in flux. We're trying to make it so that agents do have access to the widest possible number of listings.
Joanne D. asks, what sales trends are emerging in the past month in light of the pandemic?
Sure. We've actually created a market conditions report that we update fairly frequently to help you stay sort of on top of the trends. You can find that, rather than trying to summarize it here, you can always see the latest version of it on our resource page dedicated to COVID-19. So our resource page is at the URL brightmls.com/COVID-19. That's all one word, no dashes. COVID-19, COVID-19.
Kim S. from Maryland asks, are real estate agents allowed to hire a photographer in Maryland during COVID-19?
I'm not sure that's for Bright to say. Real estate agents and professional photographers, you really should be following your state's guidelines on staying at home and social distancing. Whatever your state has decided, it's going to be different, and I'm not sure that I'm the authority for that. So I would consider looking to the state and local jurisdictions for that guidance.
Christina M. asks, what about closing dates? Some clients are wanting extensions and are not sure in cases of short sales if the deal will still go through.
Sure. So I think that's probably most easily addressed through most of your state realtor associations have addendums that are available for the COVID-19 situation. I think they're actually called COVID-19 addendums, which can include addressing things like closing delays. So we recommend that you use your state's form or reach out to your local association hotline for specific questions regarding that. For Bright's part, we have relaxed its enforcement policies on delinquent closing dates, delinquent contingency expiration dates, but we do encourage you to keep them as updated as possible. We're not issuing violations, we're just issuing courtesy notices if those do get delayed, so nothing to worry about there for Bright's part. But for the actual extensions, I would seek guidance from your local association and their addendum.
Jessica T. asks, how do I extend a listing that's about to expire while under contract without calling my broker?
Well, without calling your broker, that's really going to depend on what your offices or your brokerage firm's individual setup is with regard to permissions, what you can and can't do with the listing. If your broker has previously given you permission to extend your own listings, then you'll be able to do that through listing management. Sometimes it can be set to be something that's set to a specific member or just an office staff to do that. So if you don't see the ability, you may actually need to contact your broker to extend it.
Anna A. asks, can we have more information about how to market brightmlshomes.com to our consumers?
Sure. Actually, we have a tutorial for that client-facing website. That feature, you can find the tutorial about it and information about it on our support website, which is support.brightmls.com. Just put in the search bar, Bright MLS Homes, put that into the search bar, and you'll see the tutorial on it.
Mary W. asks, to service sellers better, has Bright considered pausing the days on market for active listings for 14 or 30 days?
At this time, Bright has not made any decision to pause DOM for active listings. However, if you want to market the property, not show it, but accumulate and not accumulate days on market during this time, you can use the temp off status. Remember, in temp off, during this time, you can market it, but you can't show it. You just move it to active when you're going to do showings. But that's one way that you could slow or pause DOM for those listings.
Veronica V. asks, along with Dominique, Mark, Amanda, Charnita, and Gabriella, they all have questions with regard to active listings and clarifying if the house can be shown, what to do if the property is active and their client doesn't want to show it right now, how they should best handle that.
Sure. Well, I think Joy also talked about this at length earlier, but for our part, we're relaxing showings requirements for active and active under contract listings. In-person or on-site showings of properties, they're not required during this time. To provide another showing option for clients, if they are currently uncomfortable with in-person exposure, as I'm sure many are, we are temporarily allowing for the promotion of virtual or online showings within the public notes of a listing. So you can put a link to a video or a virtual tour right in the public remarks and just disclose that there are no in-person showings.
Divya L asks, if I put showing restriction for certain days, then will that count those days as active? What are the time periods that I need to do that?
Sure. Regardless of the showing restrictions, if the property is in active status, it's going to accrue days on market and cumulative days on market.
Ann P asks, I'd just like to reiterate the difference between pending and active under contract, and similarly, Masio also asked the differences between pending versus active under contract.
Sure. Pending means that the listing is under contract and the seller has instructed their agent to discontinue marketing and showing the property. Active under contract indicates that the property is under contract and the seller has instructed their agent to continue marketing and showing the property. That's sort of the distinction between the two.
The next subject has quite a few individuals asking about it as well. Gary F., Joyce, Danielle, Sandy, Felicia, Denise, Marianne, Stacy, Judy, many more asked about listings and the difference between sort of coming soon and temporarily off market, when to use temporarily off market, and what that means in terms of distribution of the listing, days on market.
Sure. So to just sort of recap what I think we've already talked about earlier is in the temporarily off the market status, days on market and cumulative days on market are paused. You can do that. There's no time limit for how long that could be. It's really just governed by the expiration date of the listing. And listing agents, when the property is in the temporary off status, you can continue to do your existing marketing in that status. We've also made a temporary change to allow the status for if the properties are in that status, they will still end up on IDX and partner websites like HomeSnap and Remine and Bright MLS, brightmlshomes.com. The listing contract remains in place, but while it's in temporary off, there are all showings, including like virtual showings, they're temporarily suspended. If you are going to have a guided showing, a FaceTime showing or something like that, then you would just flip it to active during that time.
The next topic has a lot of interested parties as well. We've got Jen D., Carolyn, Doug, Karen, Cecilia, Hannah, many, many more as well,
Sure.
all asking about coming soon and whether there's potentially going to be an extension to the coming soon time frame.
At this point, there are currently no plans to extend coming soon limitations or change that time frame or anything about the distribution. So coming soon may only be applied to a listing prior to the listing coming on the market, and it indicates that the listing is being prepared to publicly market it and so forth. You have 21 days in that status, and remember, it can't be shown. And that's just really the preparatory period before the property becomes active. During that time, days on market does not accrue. If your listing is not available for showings and you don't want the DOM to accrue, but it has come to market, then you can just immediately flip the status from coming soon to temporary off or withdrawn based on your seller's wishes. So if they would still like to eventually sell the property, you can keep it at temporary off. If they don't want it, you would just use withdrawn.
Ron asks about the difference between withdrawn and canceled.
Sure. Withdrawn listings are listings that have a listing agreement in place, but it indicates that the property is not being actively marketed or shown. Canceled indicates that there is no longer an agreement in place. In either status, when the listing has been off market for 61 or more days, if after that 61st day, if you create a new listing, then the days on market are reset in both withdrawn and canceled, but you do need to enter a new listing.
Daniel asks about vacant properties, if it's an issue to have showings.
In that case, I would refer to your brokerage, your local association, your state and local jurisdictions for guidance. It may vary by location, and I'm not sure it's really it's Bright's place to speak to it.
Janny from Washington asks, can you add virtual tours or open houses?
Sure. You can absolutely do virtual open houses that can be added to your listing. If you'd like to see an example, we created a training video not too long ago about how to do that using YouTube as an example, since YouTube's free, how you could have people come in and comment and virtually walk through your property. You can see that on our YouTube channel. Just go to youtube.com/Bright MLS, and you'll see a video about open houses, and I think it's referring to using YouTube's Premiere function, so that you can see how to do that as an example.
Syed asks, what safety measures should be taken so that our sellers feel comfortable to list their house in this critical time? And as related questions, James, Tequila, Peter, Deborah, Christine, again, many folks asked about just what the restrictions were, what safety measures they should be taking with regard to showings.
Sure, and this really does vary state to state, area to area, county to county. So I would check with your state Association of Realtors, your local association for their guidelines, as well as make sure that you're complying with whatever your brokerage's instructions are, because they may be more strict or more restrictive than what the state guidelines are. I would check with what local law enforcement or local safety groups are advocating for your area. It's also important to discuss your seller's wishes with regard to their listing, making sure they are sort of on the same page as you with what's going to happen. I will say many agents are choosing virtual showings through platforms like Facebook Live or Skype or FaceTime. Or doing things with pre-recorded videos or videos through vehicles like Vimeo or YouTube. There are lots of options. And just have your listing, whether it's active or active under contract, it should just reflect what the current showing settings are. And you can always put notes in the public remarks so that people are apprised of what you're actually doing with the property.
Sherry asks, some MLSs around the country are completely removing days on market during the COVID-19 crisis. Will Bright do so? And Karen asks a related question about freezing days on market.
Sure. This is something that Bright's Board of Directors, we've been meeting, or they have been meeting regularly and monitoring the situation and working with MLSs around the country to gather opinions. And right now, if the property is active, that it will continue to accumulate days on market. There's no plan at the moment, as of me saying this, there's no plan to pause DOM for active listings at all. But you can, as has been mentioned, you can use the temporary off status to sort of pause individual listings, days on market, and bring it back to active if you do schedule a showing or something like that.
John B. asks about how to list properties during the COVID-19 stay at home.
Sure. Well, you can use a lot of the virtual options. If you go to our YouTube channel, you can see a playlist there about sort of conducting your business virtually. You can do the listing management. You can have the home seller take photographs, submit them to you. You can enter the listing. There are lots of ways that you can sort of still continue to work while remaining socially distanced with each other. You can still do showings through something like Skype or Facebook Live. You can do pre-recorded showings, walkthroughs with a produced video. You can work with your home seller to help film those, help take photographs, and try and create virtual tours, try and create as close to that experience of being there in person as you can, given all the technology that we have available to us. Check our YouTube channel for some of the training on the virtual business practices. And, I think there's a lot of options out there.
Asila asks, if I withdraw my listing now, how long should I wait before I can list it again to start the listing with 0 days on market?
Sure. So that's a question we've sort of always have gotten. If you withdraw it today, you will wait 60 days, and really I would suggest the 61st day. So look 61 days into the future, and at that point, create a new listing. That's a really important distinction. Create a new listing on the 61st day. If you reactivate the withdrawn listing by just moving it back to active, the days on market are just going to pick right back up where they left off. It's the new listing. Just leave the old one in withdrawn. It's the new listing. And if you don't want to redo all of the data entry, you can use the copy listing feature to copy the withdrawn to make a new listing so that you don't have to do a lot of the rekeying. But it's 61 days.
Okay. Well, thanks so much, Mike. We appreciate your expertise.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Happy to help.
Okay. Thanks also to Joy and to all of you in attendance.